Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to completely rethink what actually happens the moment a vehicle rolls onto the service drive. We're taking that mundane, everyday task of writing up a customer complaint, and we're going to transform it into a powerful, revenue-driving diagnostic foundation. Seriously, if you want to make your service department more efficient, build massive trust with your customers, and significantly bump up those repair orders, well, you are absolutely in the right place.
Okay, let's take a quick look at our roadmap. We're going to cover the foundation, decoding NVH complaints, intermittent transmissions, multimedia failures, and we'll wrap it all up with winning with video MPIs. Let's just dive right in.
All right, kicking things off with Section 1, the write-up foundation.
So we've got to start with this fundamental truth. The write-up is not just paperwork. It is literally the single most important thing a service advisor does in that very first interaction. It dictates your diagnostic efficiency, shapes the recommendations, and builds the entire service experience. I mean, look at the stark contrast between these two approaches. Customer states vehicle makes noise. We see this all the time, right? But realistically, that is an absolute liability. Now, an expert write-up, that arms your technician with real actionable data. It captures specific conditions like temperature, because, temperature changes how metal expands and contracts. It captures the exact speed, like does the noise start at 35 miles per hour and just vanish at 50? And it captures direction, which helps isolate the concern to specific components before a technician ever even touches a tool.
Moving right along to Section 2, decoding NVH complaints. Let's step into our first really treacherous piece of diagnostic terrain. This is easily one of the most complex challenges a technician can face in the bay. Just so we're all on the exact same page, NVH stands for noise, vibration, and harshness. And diagnosing it properly, it requires so much more than just jotting down that there's a sound. You have to pinpoint exactly where it's being heard or felt. Is it in the front, the rear, the middle, driver, or passenger side? And actually, is it just something you hear in the cabin, or is the customer literally feeling it vibrate through the steering wheel, the seat, or the pedals?
Now, ask yourself, are you guilty of using this lazy yes or no question? Does it happen all the time? Honestly, when we ask stuff like this, or is it loud, or does it make noise when you turn, we're essentially just conducting an interrogation instead of a proper investigation. It totally backs the customer into a corner with these unhelpful one-word answers.
Instead, try this approach. Walk me through the last time you noticed it. What were you doing and where were you headed? Open-ended questions like this are just incredibly powerful. You're inviting the customer to tell a story, and hidden right there inside that story are the vital surface-level details your technician so desperately needs. Suddenly, you find out the noise is a rattle, not a clunk. You learn it only happens under really hard acceleration, or maybe when they're coasting downhill. Those stories, they're the secret sauce that makes diagnoses incredibly fast and highly accurate.
Which brings us to Section 3, tackling intermittent transmissions.
Let's see how this all builds into intermittent transmission complaints. These are notoriously tricky because, let's face it, they rarely ever pop up during the quick spin around the block. Transmission behavior changes dramatically based on highly specific circumstances. Circumstances the customer has probably noticed, but maybe just doesn't quite know how to explain without a little nudge from you. We need to gather data on fluid temperature, like does it happen on a cold start, or only after they've been driving for an hour? We need the exact speed, the gear range, the road grade. Is it flat, uphill, downhill? And the customer's specific driving behavior. Grabbing this data gives your technician a direct starting point for what could be completely different failure modes.
But when words just aren't cutting it, we turn to the absolute secret weapon, the lead technician ride-along. Guys, this is easily one of the most underutilized tools on the modern service drive. If you've got an intermittent transmission concern, just get your shop foreman or lead tech to hop in the car for a ride with the customer right at drop-off. The technician gets to feel exactly what the customer feels right there in real time. They can ask clarifying questions on the spot and observe the driving behavior at the same time. A simple 15-minute ride-along at drop-off can literally prevent 3 entire days of totally unproductive, frustrating diagnostic time in the bay. It's a total game changer.
All right, shifting gears to Section 4, managing multimedia failures. So this brilliantly illustrates the need for meticulous documentation as we get into the fastest growing complaint category today, intermittent multimedia, audio, and display failures. What makes these so agonizingly difficult is that there are no fault codes. There is zero physical evidence left behind. It's just a customer describing a completely blank screen that, of course, is working perfectly fine right now. That is exactly why gathering those surrounding conditions is so vital. Were they trying to pair a device? Were they using Bluetooth, wired CarPlay, wireless CarPlay, or Android Auto? But above all else, you've got to ask for visual documentation. A quick 10-second smartphone video clip of a frozen screen carries infinitely more weight with an OEM warranty claim than any verbal story ever will. If they don't have a video today, make absolutely sure they leave knowing exactly how to capture one the next time it happens. And when you're dealing with complex software, this statement right here has to be your daily mantra. You've got to communicate with empathy, but also with absolute confidence that we simply cannot skip the required diagnostic sequence established by the software engineers. I mean, dealerships don't employ the engineers who design the code, right? So we can't bypass their steps. Not because we're being difficult, but because following the process is the only way to ensure we get the correct, permanent solution. This means we have to be proactive, set the expectation for multiple visits right up front so the customer's never caught off guard. Okay, finally, Section 5, winning with video MPIs. Up until now, we've really just talked about gathering information. Now, we're shifting to presenting our findings back to the customer. Why? Because visual transparency is the absolute best way to build trust. Just think about this number, $44. Dealerships that properly leverage video inspection tools have seen up to an incredible $44 increase per repair order. That is the undeniable power of actually showing them rather than just telling them.
And to put that into perspective, the data shows exactly why that revenue bumps up. Customers are 2 to 3 times more likely to approve recommended services when they see actual visual evidence of the wear and tear. I mean, we're talking about driving approval rates up by as much as 51% compared to traditional text-only methods. When a customer can literally see their worn-out brake pads sitting right next to a gauge on camera, the friction of making that sale just completely disappears. But here's the catch. It only works if you do it right. The perfect video MPI follows this super strict 4-step process. Step 1, a personal introduction. The technician actually introduces themselves and the dealership by name. Step 2 is the vehicle checks, showing those critical areas like tires, making sure the tread depth and PSI are clearly visible. Step 3 is absolutely crucial, value building. You have to acknowledge what is actually in good shape. Pointing out those green check items builds massive trust because it proves you aren't just hunting for things to sell them. And finally, Step 4, a professional, clean, and confident delivery, spoken at a nice, measured pace of about 120 to 170 words per minute, using language the customer actually understands.
Now, the video might open the door, but it's the service advisor who actually closes it. You follow up that video with a phone call using the RIM method. This structures your final recommendations in a way that just makes sense. R is for related items, things directly tied to why they came in today. I is for immediate safety items that absolutely cannot wait. And M stands for maintenance items. Structuring it this way makes total logical sense to the customer and really prevents them from feeling overwhelmed by a massive list. Well, we've covered a ton of ground today, from conquering NVH and transmissions, all the way to multimedia failures and video MPIs. But honestly, it all circles back to where we started. Since every single customer interaction, every single recommendation, and every technician relationship relies entirely on that initial step at the drive-in. I want to leave you with this. If the write-up is the foundation of everything, what standard are you holding your very next vehicle to? Are you ready to train right, lead well, and truly serve with purpose? Really think about that before you greet your next customer. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.